Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the business meeting of the Lewiston City Council. Today is July 7th, 2020. I just want to go over a few things before we start our meeting. Sessions will be conducted remotely, and council members will only participate electronically. For those viewing online, please ensure that you join this meeting using the following web address, lewistonmaine.gov/2020cc. If you happen to join this meeting using any other link, you may have trouble connecting properly. We encourage you to log out and then rejoin the meeting using the correct website. The website address is also located at the top of our meeting agenda that is available on the city website. Public comment on any item appearing on the agenda may be sent to public comment at lewistonmaine.gov prior to or during the meeting, and all comments received will be forwarded to the City Council. Members of the public who are logged into the meeting online can make a comment when invited to do so by raising your hand using the button in the lower center of your screen. Once you are acknowledged, please make sure your microphone is unmuted and they will be invited to make a brief comment. Speakers will also need to be sure to unmute their mics as well before making comments. Councilors are also asked to raise their hands to make a comment. And Madam Clerk, if you would, could you please call the roll for attendance?
Sure, absolutely. Councilor from Ward 1?
Present.
Ward 2?
Here.
Ward 3?
Present.
Ward 4?
Present.
Ward 5?
Present.
Ward 6? Councilor, I think you're muted from Ward 6.
Once again, having problems with the mute button here, but present.
Great, thank you, Lee. And Ward 7?
Present.
Thank you. Also in attendance at tonight's meeting is Mark Kayer, the City Administrator Dennis Dote, the Deputy City Administrator Dale Dowdy, the Finance Director Heather Hunter, and myself as City Clerk. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And now we'll turn to City Administrator Dennis Dote for an update on actions regarding COVID-19.
Evening, Mayor and City Councilors. A very brief update on my part tonight. Just wanted to recognize the work of our City Clerk's office, who have put a tremendous amount of planning into our July 14th election. As you can imagine, this election under the current conditions presents numerous amounts of challenges for our staff to safeguard all of the voters as well as our staff working that day. And there's been a great deal of effort and a lot of good work going on behind the scenes, and a lot of confidence in our City Clerk's office right now in delivering. But I would like to turn it over at this point to Kathy Monteo to give a little bit more detailed update around the elections and take this opportunity. Kathy?
Great, thank you, Dennis. So just a reminder to the residents that we do have the statewide election on Tuesday, July 14th. On the ballot will be potentially 3 ballots for voters. One is the city ballot, which is the school budget ballot. A second ballot is the state referendum ballot, which has 2 bond questions. And if voters are enrolled in either the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, they'll also be receiving that ballot as well. All voting citywide will take place at Longley School. Again, it's Tuesday, July 14th. Polls open at 7 a.m. and close at 8 p.m. Parking is in the Colisee parking lot. We have verified that they have no events going on the 14th, so we're free and clear for parking at the Colisee on the 14th. Due to COVID restrictions and the state regulations, we are limited to a maximum of 150 people in the building at any one time. So we will have to have door monitors at the doors counting how many folks come in and how many folks exit. So 150 at any one time. We think we'll be okay with the flow. We have done over 4,000 absentee ballots for this election, which is highly unusual for a June primary. So it does look like most folks are voting by absentee, which is great. But certainly we do want folks to know that they absolutely can go to the polls on Tuesday. We ask that people be mindful of social distancing. In the waiting lines, we will have 6-foot markers We do ask that people honor and respect those out of courtesy for other voters and the workers, so to stay 6 feet apart. All election workers will be wearing masks as required by the state. Voters are not required to wear masks. That's a big question that we get. They do not have to wear masks. So we do want everyone to be aware of that one way or the other if that's an issue for folks. Voters are not required to wear masks. Certainly strongly encouraged and recommended, but not required. As Dennis said, we've been working really hard to put into place a lot of safety precautions to protect both our citizen election workers and the voters. So we do ask folks that they pay attention to the signage and follow the arrows and the signs for sort of the flow of everything. If folks don't want to go to the polls, that's perfectly fine, but they do want to vote. Absentee voting is still available. The state extended the deadline, and actually there is no deadline to request an absentee ballot for this election, but voters do need to take into account mail time. You could come in or call us on Monday for an absentee ballot and we're required to mail it to you, but all absentee ballots must be received by state law no later than 8 p.m. on election night. So if folks do still need an absentee ballot, I recommend that they call the office tomorrow and we can mail them one. And with that, Mr. Mayor, that's kind of the brief update, but certainly if any counselors have any questions or details they'd like us to review, I'm happy to do that. Thank you.
Any questions or comments from the council? Okay, if not, we'll move into the public comment. I'm sorry, Councilor Lee. I'm sorry, Councilor Clement.
There, I finally got it to work again. I don't know what's wrong with the mute button on my end, but just a quick question on in-person voting at City Hall, the hours for that and the process.
Sure. Yes, thank you. So we have set up an early voting polling place in the city council chambers like we usually do. We don't have as many booths down there due to social distancing, but we do have booths set up with election workers. It ends on this Thursday. It's in the afternoon, 1 to 4. So today's Tuesday, so voters have Wednesday and Thursday to come and vote down there. On Wednesday and Thursday, 1 to 4, city council chambers, first floor. But certainly if they want to vote in person, they can do that at our office any other time. That's Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 4. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, we're at the public comment period. Any member of the public may make comments regarding to issues pertaining to Lewiston City Government. 3 minutes will be allowed per speaker with a maximum time allotted of 15 minutes. I would ask everyone to please direct all comments to the mayor. And I want to clear up possibly some confusion. Any comments that have been received and sent to the city council during the week will not be read during our meeting. But what we are doing from this point on is taking public comments, putting it in a PDF file, and we're attaching it to the agenda item for that evening. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
Yes, but it will be done the next day. So it'll be done tomorrow, not during the meeting or ahead of the meeting, right?
Okay. All right, thank you. So is there anybody that would like to make a public comment?
And Mr. Mayor, before we start, I'll just point out that Heather Hunter is doing the time. So she'll give you the 3-minute cue should someone exceed that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So if there's anybody in the general public that would like to address the city council, you just need to raise your hand. Okay, Dennis and Dale, I'm not seeing any. Are you folks?
Me either.
Okay, I see that we have one that just popped up. So Kevin Bollard.
Yes,
Hi, Mr. Bollard. Am I pronouncing your name correctly?
that is correct.
Okay, and if you could just give us your town of residence, please.
Lewiston.
All right, thank you, sir. Go ahead.
I'm not sure if this is the correct platform, but I was curious if the current council members had a current stance or position on the proposal by the current board member on the school committee regarding policing reform in our school systems.
Okay, so I can assure you that every counselor probably has a position on that matter, but as a body, we have not taken a stand because actually there are two elected bodies for the city of Lewiston, one being the school committee, one being the city council. And the city council has very limited control over any school committee decisions. As you may or may not know, I've taken a stand through the mayor's office, and individual councilors, I believe, have shared their opinions individually. Does that answer your question, sir?
Yeah, for the most part, and I've definitely, I appreciate the support that you've shared. I've seen the support from the superintendent, the chief of police, several counselors, several current teachers, law enforcement officers, overwhelming amounts of support from the parents. I just strongly urge the board members to use their voice to stand against this proposal if it is not supported by the community. But at the same time, if the support is there, then obviously hear the voice of the people. But based off of the discussions I've had, which have been endless for days, the support is not there by the community. And I just wanted to take a moment to urge the council members to make sure the voice of the people is being heard on this matter.
All right, yes, thank you very much. And I will share that we have received dozens and dozens of emails from community members, either through our public comment messages or individually as counselors, and myself as mayor. So thank you very much, Mr. Bullard. And I'm not seeing any other hands raised. So I'll just do a last call to the public for any public comments. We'll give it 30 seconds or so. Councilors, I apologize for the pause. I just want to make sure in case somebody's struggling to get a comment in that we've allowed enough time. Okay, seeing no further hands raised, I'm going to close the public comment period. And Madam Clerk, if you could state the roll call.
Sure. All roll call votes for this meeting will begin with the counselor of Ward 6.
All right, thank you. Agenda item number 1.
Item number 1, public hearing on the renewal application for a special amusement permit for live entertainment for the Acme Social Club, 255 Park Street. Requested action to grant a special amusement permit for live entertainment to the Acme Social Club, 255 Park Street.
So moved.
I have Councilor Jensen moving. Any second?
Second.
Okay. Moved by Councilor Jensen, seconded by Councilor Jelinas. So any presentation, Kathy?
No presentation, is just a standard renewal. We don't have any concerns with the business, neither does the police department.
Okay, and I'll open the public hearing. All right, I'm not seeing any hands raised at this point. Any public comments in reference to the public hearing on agenda item number 1? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Any comments or questions from the council? Seeing none, call the roll.
Council from Ward 6.
I don't know why I have to click it several times before it takes hold, but the answer in the case would be yes.
Thank you. Ward 7.
Yes.
Ward 1.
Yes.
Ward 2.
Yes.
Ward 3.
Yes.
Ward 4.
Yes.
And Ward 5.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Thank you. Agenda item number 2, please.
Item number 2, public hearing on the renewal application for a special amusement permit for live entertainment for Little Joe's Bar and Grill, 740 Sabata Street. Requested action to grant a special amusement permit for live entertainment to Little Joe's Bar and Grill, 740 Sabata Street.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved by Counselor Jelinas, seconded by Counselor Ray. No further presentation, Madam Clerk?
No.
Okay, thank you. I'll open the public hearing on the matter. Okay, seeing no hands raised, I'll close the public hearing. Any comments or questions from the council? Seeing none, call the roll.
Counselor from Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 7,
Yes.
Ward 1,
Yes.
Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
and Ward 5.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Thank you. And Dale, if you could bring in David Hediger and agenda item number 3, please.
Item number 3, public hearing and final passage for proposed land use code amendments concerning the standards for drinking establishments. Requested action that the proposed amendment to Appendix A, Article 12, Performance Standards of the City Zoning and Land Use Code concerning the distance between drinking establishments receive final passage at this time.
So move.
Second.
Second.
Okay, moved by Councilor LaJoy, seconded by Councilor Ray. Mr. Hediger, if you could, do you have a presentation?
Sure. So as you're aware, this is the second meeting on this matter. This is something that the planning board has been talking to staff about for a number of years, and we finally managed to move it forward. It addresses the setbacks applying to drinking places throughout the cities, specifically in the downtown. Currently, the zoning and land use ordinance says that you have to maintain a setback of 300 feet from any other 2 establishments. We have been approached over the years to have other establishments locate downtown, specifically in the Lisbon Street area, and this ordinance, our current ordinance, has been a roadblock with respect to that. There's also a provision in there that says you have to have setbacks from schools, religious facilities, and that's actually a more onerous requirement than the state would require of these establishments in downtown areas. So the amendment before you folks does 2 things. With respect to businesses in the Centreville, Mill, and Riverfront zoning district, so that's basically the downtown area, the setbacks would no longer apply for drinking places in proximity to each other. It would still apply to drinking establishments outside of the downtown area. So you would still have to have some separation from them, so you wouldn't have a proliferation of drinking establishments on your outer arterials. The amendment also speaks to not having to have separation from religious facilities in, the Centreville, Mill, and Riverfront zoning district. And it also puts language in there that wouldn't make an existing establishment non-conforming should a church or school move in next door. That's always been kind of a cloud that's hanged over a number of establishments in town, where you could be a legitimate business operating and the school or church moves in and now you've become non-conforming. And that creates some issues for the business moving forward should they want to sell or if they go out of business for a certain period of time. Certainly that speaks to this in the comprehensive plans, providing more flexibility with respect to our ordinance, encouraging businesses, revitalization of downtown. Planning board voted unanimously, excuse me, in support of this.
All right, thank you. Any questions from councilors? If not, to the public. Any comments from the public in reference to agenda item number 3? Seeing none, back to the council. Any questions or comments from the council? Seeing none, call the roll, please.
Council from Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 7,
Yes.
Ward 1,
Yes.
Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
and Ward 5.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Okay, thank you. Agenda item number 4, please.
Item number 4, resolve acknowledging and responding to certain requests from Lewiston Police Department Patrol Union. Requested action to approve the resolve acknowledging and responding to certain requests from the Lewiston Police Department Patrol Union.
Okay, thank you. And we'll turn this over to City Administrator Dote.
Evening, Mayor and Council. As you know, at our last council meeting, you adopted a resolve condemning the use of excessive force and racial profiling. Following that, the City Council did receive a letter from our patrol unit over at our Lewiston Police Department, and the letter outlined, efforts of transparency around the department operations, as well as a number of other requests. Since the letter was received, the mayor and council president LaJoy met with representatives of the patrol unit, and really, since the letter was addressed to the city council, felt that it's appropriate that the full council provide a response to some of the key issues raised, and the resolve that you have before you does that.
Okay, thank you. So I'd just like to add, the meeting that Council President LaJoy had with the union members was, I could say quite direct on some of their thoughts, but I left that meeting convinced that our police officers really do want to try to be a part of the solution as we navigate these uncharted waters in our community. So I left there kind of feeling positive that, that we as a community, including, elected officials, community members, our staff, are committed to doing everything that we can to make sure that everyone in our community feels welcomed and is treated fairly. So I just want to share that. Anything that you'd like to add, Council President LaJoy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll echo exactly what you said. I thought it was a positive meeting, and they had many concerns. I understood a good number of them, and I agree with regards as to their needs of body cameras. I would hope that as a council, myself especially, to move forward in a positive manner in trying to attain that for them. So that's about all I have to say right now.
All right, thank you. And Madam Clerk, did I forget to get the motion and second, or? Okay.
You did, yes, yeah.
Sorry about that.
I'll move that motion.
Okay, moved by Councilor LaJoy,
Second.
seconded by Councilor Pettingill.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I move to amend the resolution.
Okay, that's a motion to amend. Do you want to explain before I ask for a second?
It's entirely up to you if you want the second first. I mean, it's not in order, I don't believe, for discussion unless it's seconded.
Okay, I'm not sure any councilors councilors been filled in on your amendment?
I would second Councilor
Several of the
Clements.
councilors have, yes.
Okay, so Councilor Ray did second that, so go ahead, Councilor Clement.
Okay, I move to amend agenda item 4 as follows by amending the fourth and final preamble clause as follows. The clause reads, whereas certain of these requests will either assist our elected officials in better understand the operations of the department, to provide greater transparency in its operations. Change that to read, whereas certain of these requests will either assist our elected officials to better understand the operations of the department or provide greater transparency in its operations. The move would strike the word in and replace it with the word to. And finally, to further amend by adding a sixth and final resolving clause as follows. The council further applauds, recognizes, and congratulates the Lewiston Police Department for not only attaining accreditation, but also containing reaccreditation, continuing for a period of 25 years from CALEA, the Commission on Accreditation of Law Enforcement Agencies, the accrediting authority established in 1979 through a joint effort of all major police executive associations, including the International Association of Chiefs of Police, the IACP, the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, NOBLE, the National Sheriff's Association, NSA, and the Police Executive Research Forum, or PERF. This accreditation is internationally recognized as the gold standard in public safety. Lewiston is the largest and only one of only 5 agencies in the entire state of Maine to achieve this distinction. Period. End.
Okay, thank you. If we can drop that screen. City Administrator Dote, can you hear me?
I can hear. Yep.
So I'm not getting any response. City Administrator Dote, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Are we working on dropping that screen, I assume?
It's dropped now on my side, so is it not on yours?
It is not, and I'm having some technical issues on my end where my screen's blurring out.
The mayor's screen appears to be frozen. Everybody else appears fine.
Okay, so it looks, so I'm getting a warning that the meeting is not responding, so I'm probably gonna have to X out and come right back in.
Oh, there you go. You just came back. You just came back.
I did?
Yep, you're okay.
Okay, so this screen is still up.
Why is that not? You did something on your end. Because that's all on my side, it's all down. So something's lagging on your side. There it goes. Oh, my goodness, what is going on?
So I'm gonna leave and come back.
Okay.
All right.
So the mayor just jumped out for a second. He's going to come right back in. So we're just going to give him a minute here to relog in.
All right, can everybody hear me? Let's see, so everybody thinks the mayor's job is a big job, but I tell you what, you get the oldest computer, the oldest phone in the house. So I think it was my computer that kind of reacted. So we have a motion and a second on the amendment. Any discussion, questions from the council?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Clement?
very briefly, if nobody else has a comment, where we find ourselves tonight with this resolution was as a result of a council action. I'm in hopes that by adding this final resolving clause to the resolution presented tonight, it will further show our support for our police department. I think they're facing some very difficult times now, all across the country and in Lewiston as well. I think that's evidenced by the communication the council's received on the issue of the school resource officers. But I'm in hopes that my colleagues can take a look at this. I don't think it takes any political stand. I think it recognizes a certain degree of professionalism in our department. I am not saying that there's not room for improvement. I think we've shown that we're willing to work with the department for improvement. I think this resolution says that. I also think that it might not go far enough in that regard. But with this final resolving clause, I will support this and hope it can be unanimous support tonight. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And I think I'd like to add a little bit here as well. So I'm quite familiar with the accreditation that Councilor Clement speaks to. And it's not easy for police departments to achieve this. And I recognize, and I've heard this, this comment from others, that it's police officers accrediting police officers. But we've had several officers in the city of Lewiston that have traveled around the United States conducting accreditation. And it's not easy, and they do challenge you to have the best policies, and you really, they research records, and if they find any flaws, you have to correct those flaws before your accreditation is done. So when I reviewed Councilor Clement's motion that he planned on giving tonight, I felt it did not take away from the previous resolve that we did, that was presented by Councilor Khalid. I think, you know, these are two standing things. I think it doesn't take away from any of that. So I would encourage the council also to show support for the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other questions or comments? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, can you see our raised hand feature? There's a couple of us.
I can see yours just now. I didn't see it before when I was talking, but I was looking down. So Councilor Ray, go ahead, and then Councilor Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to grab your attention before we moved on.
Okay.
In regards to the amendment, I appreciate Councilor Clement sharing it with me last night. And I found it to be factual, and the thread through the original patrol union letter to me was that, hey, we are different here in Lewiston. We are not necessarily representative of any national trend happening. And so in adding in this piece about the effort and the commitment it takes to become accredited through this process feels important to me, in addition to the efforts that were asked for directly in the letter to be recognized. So I think this is additive and goes to show that, you know, a lot of the discussion has been about what happens in Lewiston versus what happens in other municipalities or in other states even. And I think this is a moment to recognize how hard that department has worked for that accreditation.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess a few comments, and I know a lot of the issues we've dealt with lately have been pretty quick, especially with the pandemic. We haven't had much time to, you know, do the process the way I and probably most everyone else would like. So I just want to publicly state that I guess it is very frustrating getting amendments before resolutions the day of, not having these ahead of time, not being able to workshop these ideas and kind of come to these, you know, compromises and beforehand. I feel like if we did it that way, then we would know going into a meeting like this what possible amendments would be on the table for us to consider. So, you know, getting notified of this, you know, even the day of is kind of doesn't give me a whole lot of time. And we're supposed to get our packet information, you know, the week before. So I get the times we're in, we need to move quickly. But I just want to state that it is extremely frustrating, and I hope we can get off this track soon. I could be okay with the amendment. Some things that kind of hold me back. Number 6 just seems unnecessary to me. The letter from the police union didn't address the accreditation or us not recognizing that. I think we did recognize that. So to me, it just seems unnecessary. There's also a line in there that mentions everyone who I guess like supported the accreditation or contributes to the process. And one of the lines mentioned that the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives. I worry that some people might see that on the list as being condescending, because that's put right in their list of, like, you know, sheriff's organizations, police chiefs. So again, as someone who's white, I read that and I don't honestly personally don't take much offense to it, but I think that somebody of color could possibly. So I just kind of wonder why it's even necessary to add that organization in that list in the first place. And then other than that, the only thing else I have is superficial. In the whereas, the final preamble clause is whereas certain of these requests will either assist just the certain of these requests, should it just say whereas these requests will either assist? It just grammatically doesn't make much sense to me. But again, that's more superficial, but it could look nicer. So again, I know the process, we're kind of under some time constraints, but I'm hoping we can get off track and get to a better system of resolutions. So those are my thoughts on this. So again, if everyone in the council is supportive of this amendment, I can get behind it. But I felt like I had to say those concerns.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Jensen. Councilor Clement?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In response to my colleague from Ward 5, the reason these organizations were listed as part of CALEA, they are the founding organizations. There's nothing condescending. The International Association of Chiefs of Police is exactly that. It's a worldwide organization. The National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives is indeed that. It's a national American organization of chief officers that happen to be black in color. Nothing condescending about that. That's the title they chose. The National Sheriff's Association is just that, elected sheriffs from all across the United States. And the Police Executive Research Forum is a huge police chief think tank, if you will. They publish all sorts of data usable by police chiefs. I'm sure if you were to check with our police chief, that he refers to their various writings and things. This is meant to explain. People say, what is CALEA? CALEA was founded by these various organizations in joint effort to promote professionalism, and they've done one hell of a job of it over the years. The city of Lewiston should be proud that their city fathers back in 1994, 1995, whenever it was, chose to go that route. It has not been inexpensive. It requires personnel. It requires a certain amount of dedication. The last I knew, there were I believe it's 240 standards that have to be met by any agency to achieve accreditation. And if you look at the state of Maine, Lewiston, with a reported staff strength at the time of reaccreditation of 94 people, is the largest agency in the state of Maine to achieve this. Cities such as Portland, Bangor, Waterville have not attained accreditation. We are very fortunate. We have a reported strength, I believe, of 92. There are only 3 other municipal agencies in Maine that have attained this distinction. One sheriff's office, that of Cumberland County. But we are the largest. And over 25 years, this has served the city well. Anytime you have a situation involving a lawsuit against your city or your police agency, the fact that you are CALEA accredited shows that you support that international gold standard and you meet that standard. And it leaves a lot less room for somebody to attack you on the basis of litigation. So just by way of explanation that. I think I'm not sure whether it was Chief Gilbert back in the day that saw that this would be a great thing for the city of Lewiston. And the fact that they've maintained it for 25 years, I don't know of another agency in the state that has done that. And I think it speaks volumes for our police, and I think we ought to support them in that regard. I thank you.
Thank you, sir. Let's just reminder, let's keep this positive and inquisitive. Councilor Jensen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly don't disagree with pretty much any of that. I'm glad we have the distinction. I'm very proud of it. I'm sure our officers are as well. So I don't want to say that I'm against it at all. But absolutely no means whatsoever. If I implied that, not what I'm saying. But I just wonder why the mention of the founding organizations are on this resolution. So are these the only 4 organizations that founded CALEA? And if they're not the only 4, then why specifically was the Black Executive Organization included in the list in this resolution?
If I might, Mr. Mayor, these are the 4 founding, they are the major police executive organizations. I know of no others. There may be some smaller. There are New England associations of chiefs. These are the international and national authorities. And I know of no others. They are the 4 that got together back in 1979 and decided it's time that we, as a function of policing, get together and establish criteria to show who's doing the best possible job out there. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Councilor Khalid?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few things. First, I didn't know about this new amendment until I believe this morning or something like that. So I wish that in the future we, continue to be transparent and very communicative within the council. That being said, I have no problems with the amendment that was brought forward by Councilor Clement. I also want to recognize our police officers, continue to protect and continue to serve our communities. And I very much, I'm proud of the work that they continue to do. And I think one thing is that we need to build communication and understanding, and that's something that we are missing. So I'm glad that they have brought forward their needs, and I am willing to support them and advocate for what they need so that they can do the work that they need when they go into our communities and protect us. That being said, I just want to action number 1 about if Dennis can just explain to me the process of the purchase and a policy governing, body cameras, and who will be of the committee representative, who are those individuals. And why I'm bringing this up is I think we need a third party, like a vendor or some kind of a company, to be part of this process.
Okay, thank
May I
you.
call a point of order, please?
Yeah,
So we are currently debating the amendment as the motion. And while Councillor Khalid's question is very important and valid, I just wanted to see if that fell under being germane to the amendment.
okay. So Councilor Khalid, Councilor Ray does bring up a valid point. We have to vote on the amendment first, and then we
I'm
can
fine with
discuss.
that. I apologize.
All right, no, thank you. I will note, a couple of councilors brought up the importance of bringing amendments up to the council ahead of time. So I personally, as mayor, will try to remember that, and as councilors, we should also. I just wanted to acknowledge that. All right, are there any other questions or comments about the amendment? Okay, seeing none, if we could call the roll on the amendment.
Sure. Counselor from Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 7,
Yes.
Ward 1,
Yes.
Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
and Ward 5.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Okay, thank you, and thank you, Councilor Ray, for keeping us within the rules. Much appreciated. So, City Administrator Dote, if you could just respond to Councilor Khalid's question.
Sure. Under bullet number 1 there, what we would end up doing is I would be working with the police chief to develop a committee made up of some department staff to review the various options. I think that we're certainly not reinventing the wheel here. We're not the first community to go with body cameras. So we'll be doing that research in other communities, what are policies, procedures, different things that are already implemented, what works and what doesn't. Along part of that process, obviously, will be the vetting out of the equipment and the costs and all of those things, components around that. And then on top of that, to Councilor Khalid's question specifically around a third party or a vendor advising us, that would absolutely be a part of the process of having these vendors, these experts, not only on the equipment side, they can advise us there, but really on the implementation of this from a policy standpoint and just management standpoint of the software and data, we would go under that advice from those third parties. So we'd be taking all of that in, and then really the process would the first step after developing that plan and getting those details together, we would be presenting that to the city council in a workshop format, allowing discussion, feedback, and if additional research or questions need to be answered, we can do that.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, Councilor Khalid? Okay, thank you. Councilor Jelinas?
I actually, City Administrator Dote answered my questions. I was going to ask exactly that. Are we going to be able to have a chance to talk about some of the stuff that's brought forward from this committee? And it sounds like that's going to happen. So thank you very much.
Yes, and you know, there's going to be a spending piece to this, so this will definitely come before the council. Yeah, you're welcome. Councilor Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Speaking of the resolution as a whole, I just want to state my support for it. So I will be supporting it tonight. I do support the use of body cameras as well, and I'm happy to see that we're taking actions now to get working on that. Actually, I was asked last summer by a resident if, for body cameras, and to me the big holdup was I didn't think police would get behind it. Who wants a camera on them, scrutinizing everything they do. But if the police union, the officers are calling for it, I think we should absolutely get behind them and support them that way. Also, personally, I think it's a fantastic idea for us to do more ride-alongs. Hopefully we can get in a pattern of doing them over time. I know as a resident of downtown, there's a lot of stuff that I see every day that I wish, more people did, and I think we could get some change a little bit faster. Just everyone in the community as a whole, trying to bridge that gap, really. Going off on a tangent there, but so I'm supportive of a lot of the things the officers are asking for as well. So I know I'm going to try and step up and do as many ride-alongs as I can. I'm looking forward to that training as well. I do appreciate the officers getting together, reaching out. I appreciate yourself, Mr. Mayor, and Council President LaJoy for meeting with them, for reaching out to us too to let us know everything going on. So I know it's tough, and I do want to show support for the officers in our community because they have an extremely tough job. So while we're kind of figuring everything out here at the municipal level, as a lot of municipalities are, I see this resolution, another step forward, a lot of work to go, but positive direction. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilor Clement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just very briefly, I want to thank my colleagues for seeing their way clear to send this bit of support towards our police. It'll be well received by them, I'm sure, in light of everything that's going on. And just one other caveat for my colleagues on the council, lest anyone think that this is going to be an easy task to come up with cameras, a program. It is an expensive program. It's a complex program. So don't be expecting this is going to happen overnight. It may take some time to develop. I am 100+% in favor of body cams, but there are things that go into it. The technology is ever changing, and with the technology that changes, the cost increases. We're looking at equipping probably 70 some odd people to have this and have it work right. And you have to have policies and procedures to go along with that. We are not, as somebody just mentioned, reinventing the wheel. The organization Police Executive Research Forum has published a number of treatises on this. I'm sure that Chief O'Malley is aware of some of them. I've had a conversation with him. But let's go at it, pedal to the metal, and come up with a viable program, just understanding that it's not going to be the easiest thing in the world, and it's not going to happen at the snap of the fingers. But I think we will get there, given the support that the council is willing to show for the program. I thank you very much.
Thank you. And now I just want to check to see if there's any public comment in reference to this item. And I have one comment, one person. So could you state your name and what municipality or what city you reside in?
Name is Kwakuban, Ward 1, Lewiston.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead.
I thank you all for all the hard work you're doing. With this police camera issue, Lewiston is different from other places. The problems that other cities or towns are facing now is different from what Lewiston is facing. And I would hope that any decision that is made is not made in haste, but is data driven. We have to figure out what is best for the city of Lewiston, and if this is the best time to make those decisions.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. All right, I see Dane Morgan's hand, if we could invite him in. Hello, Mr. Morgan, if you could just state what city you're from.
How you doing? Dane Morgan here with Lewiston, Maine. Sorry, repping for Lewiston, Maine.
All right.
So my comment as we're talking about the issue of body cams is twofold. Number one, the interest of our people is that we want to be able to get ahead of the issue and not get behind it. What I find is that if we're dealing with cameras at this point in 2020, and that's been something that's been introduced to the world as of 2016, to me, we are grossly missing the fact that our people really want to feel like the community and its public servants are all on one accord. And if we're dealing with a body cam type of, if that's the resolution or the way that we're going to tackle going forward in creating that, really and truthfully, it's a reactionary method. The only time that we're going to check, I mean, and this is not just including the fact that most of your body cams, if we're going to be proactive about it, means that we would then have to hire someone who's going to watch all of the cameras on a regular basis for all of the officers. I don't see that actually taking place. And so if we're ever going to actually take and watch that surveillance, then it becomes a matter of us looking at it from a reactionary standpoint, which is something took place, and then we're looking at the cameras. Again, it's not to say that cameras are bad for our city, or that any measure that we give, anything that gives more accountability is always going to be something that is, I would believe to be something that's going to be good. But I am going to say that I believe there are other measures that we could look into first. That would be a better maximization of our money, better maximization of our budget, and is going to create a situation where our people are going to feel like they're well taken care of, and that the city themselves are looking at the fact that they also want to be transparent about making sure that the people feel safe, and that the perceptions are the same across the board. But that's really my only point about that, and I appreciate the time.
All right, thank you, sir. Any other public comment? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the council. Any other questions or comments from the council? Councilor Ray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I know there's been a lot of discussion of this resolve over the past week, and I just want to state that I would have some preferences, but I'm not going to make any amendments because I feel like this has been thought out and discussed. So in reference to both the body cameras and the training, I do just personally want to voice that I wish there were proposals and not plans. I feel that plan is committing us financially no matter what the reality is. And so I just want to voice that at this point in the process. And then, Mr. Mayor, as we've spoken about, you and I, on items 3 and 4, initially in the letter, it was a request mandating that city council members attend and participate in ride-alongs and this don't shoot training. I'm pleased to see that it says urged in place of that, but even better would be encouraged. As someone who's participated in ride-alongs with officers prior to this term, they've been very educational experiences for me, opportunities to ask members of the patrol unit what they see as issues in the community. And I think it was important to hear their voices in those settings and hopefully start to build relationships with those folks. I think the spirit of this is to just encourage folks who are sitting in these seats to better understand the policies and practices and perspectives of members of the department outside of just the department head as the chief. And so I think the spirit is in line with what we're aiming to do. And I just hope that we keep reminding ourselves that relationship building between individuals is what's going to keep moving our ideas and our city forward.
Okay, thank you. And I'd like to highlight another sentence on number 4. So councilors and the mayor are urged to take part in the shoot, don't shoot training or such alternate activities. So I think that's important because some counselors, may not feel comfortable with attending a shoot, don't shoot training. But I would encourage counselors to, think outside the box. Is there something else that you could do to learn more about the department? And, you could have a conversation with the city administrator or the chief of police to identify areas that you may feel comfortable with. All right, any other, Councilor LaJoy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm glad you brought that portion up. I remember as fire chief, it was very important for me to have the counselors understand what I was requesting as far as equipment. And I offered that to them to come to the station for us and also attend what we call a live burn and to see what we go through and the training and everything. One counselor, Counselor Putnam at the time, took up the offer, came in, put on the gear, found out how heavy it was, how hot it was, and the breathing aspect, and so on and so forth. But the fact of the matter is, whenever I sat in front of the council and I would speak in regards to certain equipment, specifically some that he had seen, had tried on, and knew about, he would relate some of that information to other counselors, which helped me a lot. And it also helped other counselors understand the needs that we have within our different departments. So I think it's very important that counselors should take an active part at some time or other and visit the departments to see exactly what's involved. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Clement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will concur wholeheartedly with the counselor from Ward 4. In a previous life, we used to invite the press in for trainings, both on the fire EMS side, as well as the law enforcement side. And it was amazing how we turned a lot of heads in that training. On the fire side, when they got into the heat and the smoke and the fact that they couldn't figure out where they were in a live burn situation, they really began to appreciate the need for protective gear and the training that went with it. On the law enforcement side, I would just ask that my colleagues be as open-minded as possible about this. We are giving our police officers equipment, but we're giving them much more than that. We are giving them the authority under certain circumstances to actually take a human life. There is no other occupation that I can think of that is granted that type of authority. And this happens so many times in a split second that is litigated for years thereafter. Lawyers sit back and forth and argue about it 3, 4, 5 years sometimes. So I understand that some counselors may not like the idea of firearms. I would encourage them to at least attend the classroom section so they can see actual scenarios that their police officers have to go through in their daily life and how much time they have to make a decision based on that. They need not have to handle the actual equipment, but certainly it's an eye-opening experience for them, I'm sure. And I would encourage them, if at all possible, to try that. They would have a much better understanding and I think better appreciation for the incredibly difficult job we ask them to do in our behalf. I thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Khalid.
Thank you, Mayor. So I want to bring up action number 3, where it says emphasize that stats, figures, and studies in law enforcement are often unreliable. And I'm a bit confused about what research is unreliable, or I would like to see.
If I could, so you're speaking of the letter that was sent to the council. That's not part of the resolve.
Oh.
So item 3 of the resolve is urged elected officials to partake in a patrol ride along.
Then I'm talking about the letter then, never mind.
Yeah, okay.
So my question is, we're not voting on the letter, correct? It's just there.
So we're, by voting for this resolve, we're acknowledging receipt of the letter.
Okay. One thing that, I mean, I don't mind ride-alongs and all of that. I'm just wondering if it's gonna capture the actual day-to-day, policing experience of our community members. If a counselor or if someone is riding along, I don't think it's gonna capture the actual reality, but I would like to see it. I don't mind. I don't know how I feel about shoot, don't shoot, but then again, I'm a brave girl and I can do, I can be part of that. One thing that I can suggest for the counselors as well as for the general public is maybe like more, more conversational based things such as coffee with a cop, something like that, so that it's, much more someone, an officer would sit with a counselor or a community member and they would, talk and have a very genuine conversation of their experience as well as what that officer thinks, of course, after COVID. So that's one suggestion that I would give.
Yeah, and I would, I'll just go back. I would encourage counselors to make of this what they feel will best help them understand the performance of law enforcement. So, if you ride with an officer and then you want to take a moment and speak with the chief of police about your experience with that ride, he could help answer questions. But I'm quite confident that if you choose to ride on a Friday night or a Saturday night, with 40,000 calls a year, I can assure you, you're going to see what it's like being a patrol officer in the city of Lewiston. I think, especially if they put you, in one of the busier beats. So
we should talk about my experience, Mr. Mayor, because it was not exciting at all.
No. All right, so we move this along. Let's go to Councilor Pettengill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I myself would like to see the language say that it mandates counselors to see what goes on in the day-to-day of our first responders. I myself grew up in the firehouses in Lewiston, some that are still operational, some that are not, like the former Lincoln Street Fire Station. And it's important to be able to see what these people go through and the decisions that they have to make. These are the people that run towards the situations that the rest of us run away from, and we hope that they take care of our family members. I can remember the Harley-Davidson fire on Outer Main Street that happened during a winter night, and because it was so cold, the equipment malfunctioned, and a firefighter caught a water cannon in the face, and it broke his face. That's not an easy decision. Now, everybody loves firefighters. Cops have a different reputation, but it's important that if we're making decisions for these people that we really truly understand what is going on and the repercussions of what those decisions are, because it doesn't just stop once the call is done. There's an after that goes through with that, and that lasts a long time. And I do understand that happens for both the officers and the people that are involved with this and the public as well. But we have to be cognizant of that. So I would urge everybody to take the trainings, do the shoot, don't shoot, and see what goes on with that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, any other quick comments or questions? Okay, Councilor Clement, you're muted.
There, it keeps sticking for some reason or other. Maybe I need a new battery in the mouse. I don't know. Just briefly, this is not television. If you go for a live ride along, I agree with the mayor. On a Friday or Saturday night with over 40,000 calls for service, you're bound to see something. If not, come back the next Friday night, because you won't have 2 Friday nights in a row that'll be dull or boring. And it's not like television. It's not over in 5 or 10 minutes and there are no commercials. It's all action. But you get a true appreciation for what we're asking these people to do. And, many times they're on the lower end of the economic strata when we're asking them to do it. So it's incredibly important. I agree with Councilor Pettengill that we had a saying in the business, they can't understand us till they walk a beat in our shoes. I think that would help them to understand. And I'm sure once they understand, they'll appreciate just what goes on in the city of Lewiston. I thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no other hands raised with that, Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll.
Sure. Counselor from Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 7,
Yes.
Ward 1,
Yes.
Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
and Ward 5.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Thank you. Councilors, that was a great discussion. Thank you. Agenda item number 5.
Item number 5, order authorizing the city administrator to execute a collective bargaining agreement with the Lewiston Police Supervisory Command Unit. Requested action to approve the order authorizing the city administrator to execute a collective bargaining agreement with the Maine Association of Police.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Clement, seconded by Councilor Pettengill. City Administrator Dote.
Yes, I'll be brief, Mayor and City Councilors. As you know, we've been in discussions with our police command unit for a couple of months now. What you have before you is a new contract, 3-year contract that actually goes into effect July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2024. There's COLA adjustments throughout that contract at 2.5% per July 1st, and another 0.5% on January 1st of each year, and some step adjustments, very similar to some of the recent contracts we've been seeing before you in the recent months.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments? Councilor Ray?
Just minutia, as always, the letterhead for City Hall is still listing Ed Barrett and Dennis Dote as contacts when it should be Dennis and Dale now. Just wanted to clear that up for future.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, call the roll.
Counselor from Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 7,
Yes.
Ward 1,
Yes.
Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
and Ward 5.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Okay, thank you. Dale will have to bring in Joshua and Nigene for the next agenda item. Agenda item number 6, please.
Item number 6, resolve extending the term of the Ad Hoc Committee on Recycling and Waste Reduction until October 31st, 2020. Requested action to approve the resolve extending the term of the Ad Hoc Committee on Recycling and Waste Reduction until October 31st, 2020.
So moved.
Second that.
Okay, moved by Councilor Jensen, seconded by Councilor Clement, and there was an extra person brought in, Dale. Was that by accident?
That was a slip of the mouse. I'm working on it right this second.
Okay, thank you. So I'll turn this over to Councilor Jensen, correct? Dennis? Yep.
Very briefly, and then I'll turn it right over to Mr. Najin. Yeah, so just quick introduction. I'm the City Council representative on the Waste and Recycling, and Waste Reduction Committee. Our chairperson is Joshua Najin, so he's going to go ahead and take right over.
Hi, Joshua.
Hi, good evening, councilors, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to introduce myself and to go over a couple of details about things that we've been working on and ask for the resolve to be passed. But ultimately, I'm representing 6 committee members: Sean Monteith, Helen T. Worf, T. Price Worf, John Farina, Julie McCabe, Paul Robinson, and myself. We've recently had the benefit of having Bruce Damon from the City Council, school committee, added to our group. Luke is representing the council, and we're working with Megan Bates. Many of you weren't on council when former Mayor Cloutier set up this committee, and I'm not quite sure if everybody's familiar with what exactly we're doing. So I just wanted to quickly go over it. The purpose of the committee was to gather and review existing data and studies relating to Lewiston's current recycling program, evaluate the effectiveness of the current program, identify the barriers that negatively impact more widespread participation in the city's recycling efforts, and then develop recommendations to increase the city's current recycling rate in an effort to meet the state goal of 50%, including proposals to address enhanced public information and education. Develop recommendations on other steps that the city might take to reduce the generation of solid waste and reduce the amount of material landfilled or incinerated, and develop estimates of the cost to implement these recommendations and proposals. We've done much of this work. There is quite a bit that we were not able to do because of COVID. It's halted some of the conversations that we were to have with partners that we work with, such as Casella, community and civic organizations that we were hoping to engage, LRTC, and also other members of school staff and administration. But the good news is our recycling program is incredibly cost effective and reaches quite a few residents within the city. It reaches 80% of our residential dwellings. It costs us right now $0 for tipping fees, and we do pay for collection. One of the issues that we're running into is obviously participation. Part of that comes back to reporting from curbside. From the work that we've done, we've found that there are people who definitely believe they're recycling, but it's just never getting to the recycling facility. The reason why I wanted to come before you is just to kind of just go over some of the work we've done, and also to see if you have any questions or guidance concerning the work that we're doing before we ask for the extension and hopefully receive it.
All right, so I think you did a great presentation, kind of letting us know where you came from and where you're at this point. So I think there's, pretty good information in reference to extending this resolve. Is there any questions or comments from the council? Councilor Ray?
I just wanted to commend the committee right out of the gate during the last term. It came forward with a mayoral proclamation that was approved and some other work. And I know that you all were meeting at quite a good clip before the pandemic occurred. And so I do trust that this work is being addressed swiftly and carefully and effectively. So I'm looking forward to approving the extension.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the council? Councilor Jensen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Nagin. Great presentation. As always, you may have noticed him featured in the paper recently for a lot of his work that he's done in making the community a better place. So, local celebrity here.
You stole my thunder. I was going to save that for last.
Hey, got you this time. But I know talking with Josh too that I mean, there's a lot of work to be done, and I know he was interested too. If anyone else in the council had any thoughts, because I think there's only 3 of us that were on the council when this resolution or when this committee was created. So if anyone had any thoughts, they could certainly share them now. Definitely email them to him. I know a lot of the work is looking into obviously recycling, reducing the waste that we can create as a city. I know Josh is looking into like composting. That's usually a popular thing that people will ask about. So there's a lot to it. So if you guys do have any guidance, any suggestions, and anyone in the community as well, be sure to reach out to myself, reach out to Mr. Nagin, and we'll be good to move forward. And we believe that we should have everything in place by October 31st to finish up everything the committee needs to do. So we'll come to the council with the recommendations and a full presentation.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Jensen. Any other questions or comments from the council? Seeing none, I'll turn it over to the public. Any questions or comments from the public? All right, we have one. Hello, sir, go ahead.
Akubban from Ward 1. And I thank you for all the work, Joshua and Luke, you're doing on the recycling. I was wondering how you're involving the immigrant community, whether there's any educational material that they understand so that they can also take part in it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I can answer to that. Yes, absolutely. That's one of the major concerns that we have as far as increasing participation. And one of the delays that we had in working out some of these outreaches was the people that we were needing to contact, their doors were closed for quite a while. Right now, we're getting back to the point where a lot of the organizations are opening back up. But I do work with St. Mary's, and I do have contacts at Cultivating Community. Our plan is to put out multiple language handouts in order to help promote recycling. And hopefully we may be able to get some of that online as well.
Okay, thank you. I see no other public comments, so I'll bring it back to the council. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, call the roll, please. Oops, I'm sorry, hold on, Madam Clerk. Councilor Clement.
Just a quick question. I want to make sure I heard this right. We are not paying any tipping fee for our recycling currently?
That's correct. Currently, we pay 0 tipping fees until 2021, and that's an important point I just want to give you guys a couple of quick dates because they're important. Until 2021, we pay no tipping fees with Casella. We can extend that for an additional 5 years, so that when we come to 2021, we can extend that for an additional 5 years to have no tipping fees all the way up till 2026. And then another thing, just to put in your heads, and I know it's not going to be this council that makes this decision, but we've greatly reduced the amount of waste that gets moved to our landfill facility because of our relationship with MWAC, but that landfill will eventually be filled. And we're talking about, right now, the estimates are between 25 and 30 years, but in some cases, in order to get a new facility, that process can take 15, 20 years. So it's something to think about in the process of what we're putting into our facility and how we're handling our solid waste, because that will be a cost for us.
And just to clarify, we have several very young councilors here, so technically a few of them could survive that long and still be on the council.
Very true.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments from the council? All right, seeing none, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Council from Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 7,
Yes.
Ward 1,
Yes.
Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
and Ward 5.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Josh, thank you very much. That was a great presentation.
Thank you all. Have a great evening.
Mr. Mayor, I think, if I might, Councilor LaJoy and I thank you for the vote of confidence.
You're welcome. Agenda item number 7, please.
Item number 7, resolve accepting and appropriating a $475,360 grant from the Keep Maine Healthy 2020 Municipal COVID-19 Awareness Campaign. Requested action to approve the resolve accepting and appropriating a $475,360 grant from Keep Maine Healthy 2020 Municipal COVID Awareness Campaign.
Okay, thank you very much. Finance Director Hunter, I think you're presenting.
Thank you. Briefly, as you may be aware, the state had some stimulus money to the tune of a little over $13 million. It was a competitive process that municipal governments got to apply and outline how they were going to address within their municipality public education activities, the physical distancing and public health support, as well as local business assistance. When we essentially had just under a week and a half to submit the application, come up with a draft budget. We submitted the budget and we were awarded the full amount, as the city clerk mentioned, a little over $475,000. By this Friday, I have to submit a more detailed budget on how we are going to spend that money. There is great flexibility with that, so we will be meeting with a number of new Mainer organizations to see how we can get public safety or mask and hand sanitizer and so forth out, as well as help our local businesses by answering questions, get signage in the park, and a whole host, as well as prepare for the presidential election and start stockpiling mask, hand sanitizer, get some equipment, help our public buildings be more socially distanced responsive. There's going to be a component of marketing, so we could send that information out to the utility customers as well as the taxpayers and so forth. So that's what initially that we have planned.
All right, thank you very much. Any questions or comments from the council? Councilor Khalid?
Do we need a motion for this or no?
We do, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Don't move, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Khalid, for
Second.
bringing that up. And moved by Councilor Clement, seconded by Councilor Jensen. Thank you, Councilor Khalid.
I understand.
All right, go ahead.
So I'm wondering, like, I know the downtown business, I've been reading it, and then it says there are some business assistants, but I'm wondering if does that include giving businesses PPE equipment so that they can give, because I know that I was trying to help the downtown business community, especially the Somali businesses, and they are missing a lot of masks, and a lot of community members go there and they don't even have masks. So I'm wondering if we can support them in that effort.
That's exactly what this grant is designed to do, is to provide links with the supply, with who in the community needs it, educate about social distancing, educate about the need to wear masks, although not necessarily required. It's strongly recommended, you know, in all traveling, you know, outside of your own home, and social distancing and so forth. So hopefully things become, you know, somewhat back to normal, as much as that's going to be in this new wave of the future, so to speak.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments from the council? To the public? Okay, back to the council. Questions or comments? Seeing none, call the roll, please.
Counselor from Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 7,
Yes.
Ward 1,
Yes.
Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Okay, thank you. If we could bring in Chief O'Malley and agenda item number 8, please.
Item number 8, resolve appropriating $40,000 from the federal drug forfeiture account for the purpose of purchasing a drone for the police department. Requested action to approve the resolve appropriating $40,000 from the federal drug forfeiture account for the purpose of purchasing a drone for the police department.
So moved. Second.
So moved by Councilor Ray, seconded by Councilor LaJoy. Chief O'Malley, thank you for being here, and take it away.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. I think most of you folks got a chance to read that memo I had sent to Ed, but I just maybe want to explain a little bit of it to you. We're looking to get a drone, which we also call a UAV, which is an unmanned aerial vehicle. In my memo, I talk about reconstruction, forensic mapping, and what that actually means is whenever we have a very serious car accident or a fatal car accident, I have one of my officers is trained as a reconstructionist. Also another one that does forensic mapping, and it gives a much more detailed action reports. Oftentimes, if it's going to be a criminal prosecution, and when there's a death, that we investigate that. What this does, this allows them to take photos over a large area. Oftentimes with a fatal car accident, you have evidence that's spread out over quite a distance. And oftentimes we have to shut down major roadways. divert traffic for a long time, and this speeds up the process. Another instance that we could use it is if, just collecting evidence in different crime scenes that occur outside. Oftentimes we have to call on the state police to assist us. And once again, that we have to block off neighborhoods or block off streets to do this. I'm also looking forward to having this. We often have times based on our community, we have some elderly folks. We've had folks with dementia wander off from their homes out into the woods. We had an incident a couple of years ago of an autistic boy that wandered away from home. The good things about this, I'm going to say the word drone because I think that's what everybody kind of uses, is that can be up in the air and looking for someone right away. About 3 years ago, I think you folks remember, we had the 2 young boys that fell into the river over on the Auburn side. Many of my officers were involved in that along with the fire department. We only recovered one of the children. If we could have had that up, that drone right away, we might have been able to find that boy at least sooner. I'm not saying that would have saved his life, but we wouldn't have had to drag it out as long as we did for the parents, which was very unfortunate. I mean, it's something that we borrowed from different places. We have our hazmat team. If we have an issue with hazmat, we could use that to explore the scene as opposed to sending someone in, even though they do wear the gear. You could send this in to get an overlook or an overview of a scene without endangering the life of somebody. It was kind of passed over during the budget process because with the COVID, it was put in with a new equipment. It's not going to come out of the general fund. It's going to come out of, the money will come out of the drug forfeiture. I've already trained, I want to say 5 or 6 officers. I was able to get free training from the University of Maine, Augusta. We had the instructor come down here and the classroom was full of other agencies because you have to be certified with a class, and then through the FAA, you have to take a test to be licensed to do that. Some folks may have a concern about the police and the use of the drone. The state of Maine, the laws that are written basically only pertain to law enforcement, that you cannot use a drone for criminal investigations without a warrant. You can't use it to conduct surveillance of private citizens peacefully exercising their constitutional rights. We would never weaponize it. You can't do that. But what we can do is use it as a tool to assist us in looking for suicidal subjects, people that wander away from home, children, with special needs. And I think it's about time, as we're the 2nd largest police department in the state of Maine, that we get one of these and not have to rely on the state police or other agencies to come to our assistance, which many times I can. I have the officers trained are all on different shifts. So if it's at 2 o'clock in the morning or 12 o'clock in the afternoon, I'll have somebody available that can use this drone.
Okay, thank you. Chief, do you know what the life expectancy of the drones are?
Yeah, this one is going to be the latest and greatest. It also, the cost is going to come with the software to run it. We're going to have to purchase a laptop. And I had seen this one that the instructor brought down. They actually have sensors on it that don't allow it to crash into buildings or trees or anything. So the technology has really changed over the last couple of years. We're saying $40,000. My hope is not going to be that much, but that's for the laptop as well to utilize it. So it's about, I guess it all depends on the life expectancy in terms of if you want to keep up with the technology. But the one that we're looking at, you can put different cameras on it. If you have a child missing out in the woods, you can use a thermal imaging camera. If out in the water, those type of things, you have different attachments that you can put on it. So really that's what changes is the cameras, the actual drone itself, technology changes, but not as quickly.
All right, thank you. Councilor Clement.
Thank you, Mayor. To the chief's benefit here, I say that back in the day, we had, I think, 3 pilots in the agency. It would take about 45 minutes to get a plane in the air. And then you're only as good as the eyes of the guys riding in the plane. The developer where I reside showed me here about 2 weeks ago a rather expensive drone that he purchased for purpose of keeping track and doing aerial photographs of buildings as he built them out and sending them to people who are coming in from across the country, sight unseen of the house. They'd sent plans, but each day he could fly this thing up. They are truly amazing. The sensors that are involved, this thing will go up, it'll only go so far out. It recognizes how much fly time it has. It'll turn around, come back and land in the exact same spot it took off from. And it won't crash into any, it's amazing. Technology is absolutely amazing. And to think that this could be used for things like accident reconstruction, crime scene mapping, and those types of things, I think it would be a great benefit to the department. I'm 100% behind. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments from the council? Seeing none, I'll turn it over to the public. Any questions or comments from the public? Go ahead, sir. Hello.
From
Hi
Ward
there.
1. I moved to Lewiston, Maine from Baltimore after the Freddie Gray riots. And one of the first things I did when I moved to Lewiston is I walked into the police department just to sit down with them to let them know that I was a new resident. And I want to thank Chief O'Malley that I sat down with Officer Joseph Philippon, and he was very helpful. He gave me all the contacts to all the community resources that I would need as a new resident in the community. And if officers keep assisting community members in ways like that, I think it will go a long way to help us all in the community. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other public comments? Seeing none, back to the council. Questions or comments? Okay, thank you. Seeing none, Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll.
Council from Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 7,
Yes.
Ward 1,
Yes.
Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
and Ward 5.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
If we could bring in Marcella, please. Agenda item number 9, please.
Item number 9, resolve accepting a donation to the Lewiston Public Library Endowment Fund from the Carl Bennett Strab 2012 Revocable Trust. Requested action to approve the resolve accepting a donation to the Lewiston Public Library Endowment Fund from the Carl Bennett Strab 2012 Revocable Trust.
So moved.
So moved.
Okay, moved by Councilor Ray, seconded by Councilor Jensen. Good evening, Marcella, and the floor is yours.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. We received word back in January that the library was named a charitable beneficiary of the Strab Trust. And then in late June, we received the initial amount and disbursement from this donation, which was in the amount of $244,888.21. Additional funds are expected as the estate is finalized, but we don't have an amount on that just yet. This endowment, this donation to the library endowment carries the stipulation that these funds are to be spent solely for the acquiring of library material for study of connections between human cultures and the natural world. As you'll note on the memo that you have there, this is something that we do regularly. We have about a dozen items in the library endowment that carry similar stipulations, and so this is something that we would manage similarly.
All right, thank you. Questions or comments from the council? Councilor Ray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to take a moment to recognize Carl Straub was an incredible member of our community, a resident of Ward 3, great contributions at Bates College and in Lewiston. And I just was so pleased to see that he included the library as part of his revocable trust. I just think what a gift to this community and to the library. So I just wanted to take a second to honor that.
All right, thank you, Councilor Ray. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll turn it over to the public. Questions or comments? Back to the council. Okay, seeing none. Madam Clerk, if you're ready, call the roll.
Council from Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 7,
Yes.
Ward 1,
Yes.
Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
and Ward 5.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Okay, Marcella, thank you very much. And please share with your staff. We recognize this has been a challenging time for the library staff, but they really have stepped up to the plate and everything that they're doing. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, agenda item number 10.
Item number 10, reports and updates.
Yes. Councilor Ray. Where'd she go?
It looks like we just lost her, Mayor. I'm thinking she might be having some technical difficulties.
Okay, Councilor Jelinas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I sit on the Lewiston Area Public Health Committee, and today we met with a Sun Journal photographer and had our picture taken in front of the Hopeful sign just to try to promote, you know, masking up, being safe, that sort of thing. So we're just really looking at ways to get the message out about keeping safe in this community, and we've been meeting fairly regularly, and there's good things happening. So there's an update from that committee.
All right, thank you. And I saw Dottie posted that photo at the Hopeful sign, so thank you very much for doing that today. Councilor Ray, when you're ready.
Sorry about that. I got sent to the attendee holding room. So that was a fun new experience. So gosh, I've lost my entire train of thought. School committee, here we go. So we have a meeting tomorrow for the school committee. The committee will be meeting in executive session pursuant to our legal rights. I do not know of any action that will be taken after that meeting, but I have requested that it be broadcast to the public in case there is an agenda item added and voted upon following that executive session. So that should be available under the button on lewistonpublicschools.org where it says YouTube live stream. I know that's been a concern in the past, so I just wanted to make sure folks knew that. We also have a meeting scheduled Monday, July 13th. I am not certain of everything on the agenda as we have not received it yet. However, I do know that the topic of school resource officers will be discussed. There is a proposal from a member, and as you all have seen, the council is receiving a lot of communication about this, as is the school committee. Anything that is shared with the council but not the school committee, I plan to forward along to them as it is part of the public record. And I do want them to see each communication that we get, just for folks' clarification.
All right, thank you, Councilor Ray. Any other reports or updates? Seeing none. Agenda item number 11.
Item number 11.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Madam Clerk.
Oh, that's okay. Item 11, any other city business councilors or others may have relating to Lewiston City Government. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Clement.
Yeah, I move we suspend the rules and engage in a discussion involving that proposal from the school committee that's coming up on their next meeting. I would like to see a discussion amongst the councilors and get some feeling to see if there is any resolve here. I know you sent a letter to the school committee. I'd like to know if other councilors are willing to sign on and endorse that letter, or perhaps even take a vote and have that sentiment passed on to the school committee, what we as a board support. I realize that we have no control over the school committee other than final budget, and I'm not suggesting that we're trying to do anything other than to show what I believe many of my colleagues' constituents have relayed to them. I have not had an issue come even close to what I've received for comment from the public. Even while I'm sitting here tonight, stuff is coming in. So I would like to know if there's sentiment there to suspend the rules and have a discussion and see if we can come to some agreement on where we proceed on this. I thank you.
All right, and just for clarification, Madam Clerk, we would need a motion to suspend the rules. It would have to be seconded.
Yes, correct.
Second.
Okay, so Councilor Clement, I'm going to take that you made the motion.
Yes, I did, sir.
Okay, so moved by Councilor Clement, seconded by Councilor Pettengill to suspend the rules to take up an additional agenda item related to pending school committee vote. Councilor Ray?
I just want to echo some of my colleagues from earlier in the night that the public was not informed that the council would be taking this up. And so I just worry that that isn't the most transparent way of going about this process. And so I welcome the discussion, and I have had Councillor Khalid and Councillor Jelinas reach out to me to express their opinions. I've reached out to the remainder of the councillors to set up a time and have spoken with Councillor Clement and Councillor LaJoy about their feelings on this already. As the council's representative to the school committee, I hope to find time with Councillor Jensen tomorrow, and then with Councillor Pettengill at some point when he's available.
I would, so I would acknowledge your concern about suspending the rules. It's something that should be rarely done. But I gotta share, in this case where we have had overwhelming public reaching out to us, I think this would be one of those circumstances that might warrant that, but that obviously is not a mayor's call. Councillor Khalid?
So will we be voting on this?
We at some point, once members have weighed in, we're gonna vote on the motion to suspend the rules. And then then I'm sure there'll be some type of motion that we'll be discussing beyond that. And there is discussion on a motion to suspend the rules, right, Madam Clerk?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Ray?
I realize this is weird to just be going around, but since we don't really have the benefit of discussion that we would have in chambers, I did want to express that I think this is a moment where it would warrant a suspension of the rules, but I just, again, want to emphasize the fact that we need to be transparent and accountable to the public in the future. And I don't feel like this is that, but I do think it's an important discussion. So just trying to clarify and delineate between the two.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Jelinas?
I'm definitely in favor of having these rules suspended for this discussion, just given the volume of emails that we have received as a council. I definitely respect Councilor Ray's point of view, but I think this is so very different. And I think the meeting is still being recorded. We're still public. There's opportunity to still listen to what we're saying. I understand about the notice, but I think this is just a point that has just brought on so much public interest that I would be in favor of suspending the rules as well.
Okay, thank you. I believe Councilor Khalid was up first. I may be mistaken on that, but go ahead, Councilor Khalid.
Thank you. I just want to say that I completely feel sidetracked right now because I haven't had any, no one basically has reached out to me, and this is of course out of the blue for me and maybe for other counselors. And like I said earlier about the amendment, I think we really need to be very transparent and communicative, regardless of our ideology or our values or whatever opinions that we have in the past. I think we should give counselors the courtesy just to talk and just see where they stand on things, and that's not happening right now.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Khalid. Councilor Clement?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The reason I bring this up tonight is we had short notice on this going on to the school committee's agenda. We came out in our packet due to the holiday on Thursday afternoon. There was no staff available until Monday. Anything we put on the agenda is supposed to be in the clerk's office by the Wednesday before the meeting. And I agree wholeheartedly with what the councilor from Ward 7 had to say. This issue has literally blown up overnight. There is tremendous concern. I'm not sure why somebody on the council has not seen anything on the council's email, the stuff that has been passed along. I mean, I've been getting stuff since last Thursday night. And I just think that it behooves us as a council to have a discussion. I'm not sure it's going to go anywhere. I don't know what the sentiment will be. I'm doing this completely blind. I have an opinion about this, as many things. I'm not sure that everybody will share that opinion. But I think it's a very important issue to be discussed, and it directly impacts the future of the city of Lewiston. So therefore, I think it warrants that discussion. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And just a reminder, we're talking about the motion to suspend the rules. Councilor Pettengill?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wholeheartedly agree that, especially in this time that we find ourselves in, that transparency and openness with the public is something that we should strive for vehemently at all times, especially that we aren't meeting in council chambers and everything has to be done digitally. But it is important to note, while some of my colleagues on the council have voiced some concern about this coming up in the manner that it has, it's not the first time that we've had issues come up at the time of a meeting. So we've had these issues before, so it is important to note that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other questions or comments in reference to the motion to suspend the rules?
Mr. Mayor, I ask you move the question.
Councilor Khalid?
Thank you, Mayor. Just one question. So if we, I'm gonna vote on this, but my question is, if we will have a discussion on this proposal that's, from the school committee, does that mean that we will have a discussion on every proposal that is put by the school committee?
So no, because I think one, as a council, we all recognize that we have two bodies. The school committee is a separate body. We don't control the school committee. However, occasionally, and honestly, this is the only one I recall in my time of service to the community. There are subjects that are so, that create so much public interest. When councilors are receiving so much input on a school committee issue, I think there are times that a council can come out and just share their thoughts. We're not instructing the school committee, we would be sharing our thoughts. So no, I don't see that happening regular. I've never seen it happen before. I'm sure it has, but I don't think we have to worry about that, Councilor Khalid. Any other concerns or questions, Councilor Khalid?
No, it's just like, I'm just kept thinking again, yeah, there are some proposals or like some, decisions that the council may discuss regarding the school committee, but I just feel like this, if we do have a discussion regarding this proposal, then that in the future, that means that we will continue to have discussions, because we cannot say, oh, regardless of how many community members have came out in support of this. I think there's a lot of issues that come about in front of the school committee. So if there are some counselors who have a very strong standing on some proposals that is brought by the school committee, and if we want to discuss it, we should in the future, if this is going to be a step to that.
Okay, well, that's good points. I hope this isn't a step to us second guessing the school committee all the time. But again, I think in this case, it may warrant some discussion. And I'm not sure we're going to debate their position. I think Councilor Clements suggesting that we might want to take a position, but we'll see where that discussion goes if this motion passes. Councilor LaJoy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe Councilor Clemens moved the question for a vote.
Okay, I'm just not prepared to cut off any councilors who want to speak quite yet. So I just want to make sure, is there any other questions or comments? Okay, if not, call the roll.
Okay, and just for clarification for folks, we're voting to suspend the rules to open up the discussion. Counselor from Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
And Ward 5?
Yeah.
Motion passes by a vote of 7-0.
Okay, thank you. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Clement?
I would move that the council enter into discussion regarding the proposal to come before our school committee in an effort to see if there is common agreement on a stand of support or for or against the resolution. And a number of things in this discussion that could take place would include a letter that the mayor has sent to the school committee already, perhaps individual comments from counselors, but I would like to see if there is agreement amongst the council to send some type of a joint message indicating support for or against this proposal. I think we owe it to our constituents. As I said before, I've yet to see anything come close to this on the amount of public interest. This is an issue near and dear to my heart. I was a police chief in a former life. I had no school resource officers. I only had a 12-man department.
Okay, if we could, Councilor Fleming, let's just try to get a motion on the table. So
Okay, the motion would be to enter into discussion to see if we can come to some type of agreement for or against support for the school committee in their efforts to deliberate.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Pettingill. And I think we'll have to fine tune that motion a little bit as we go on, but I think the clerk has the gist of that. Okay, thank you. All right, questions or comments from the council? Councilor Clement, do you want to go a little bit? Yep, go ahead, Councilor.
Sure. As I started to say, I was a police chief in a former life. Had a 12-man department, 12 full-timers. We had no school resource officer. We had a youth services officer that kind of did dual duty. He was in the schools continually. I had 2 schools in the town. I had an elementary school that went through grade 6, and then I had junior, senior high combined. I encouraged my officers, perhaps encourage is too light a word. I think I ordered my officers to attend school lunches regularly, and they did. They were very popular in the schools. The parents loved the fact that we interacted. We did a DARE program. Now, this is back in the early 90s. And in our neighboring state of New Hampshire, the DARE program was sanctioned and run by the New Hampshire State Police. They certified instructors for that program. They provided the only curriculum that could be taught, and it was a Say No to Drugs program, unlike the current program that's being utilized in Lewiston. I hope everybody on the council's had a chance to see Chief O'Malley's email regarding the Facebook posting from the police department. I think it went out yesterday. A very all-encompassing memo. I think it outlines the procedure real well. I don't have a tally right now as to how many communications I've had, but it's many. And talking with one of my colleagues last night, I think that colleague indicated that they had 65 emails. I'm sure that's changed as of today, seeing the slew that's come out just late today. And there were like 62 or 3 in favor and 2 possibly against. Your letter, I think, was to point. I recognize that we're not trying to do anything other than portray to the school committee the sentiments that are being expressed to us by our constituents. Many of our constituents do not understand the finer points of each body and how they interact with one another. They think that I've had conversations, they think, well, you can do something about that. Tell them you can't do that. I understand that. But I think that there may be support amongst the majority of the council that we could at least send some sentiment to the school committee indicating support for or against. I know I have personally sent a message along. I've indicated what I had for support. I probably will send one more when things die down. I can't attend the meeting Monday. I wished I could. I have a finance committee meeting in its stead, but I think it's an all important issue. And another case where I would hate to see anybody in this city slap our police in the face again so soon. So with that, I would welcome anything that my colleagues might have to say and then see if we can come to some type of agreement. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Councilor Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wouldn't say that we've slapped anybody in the face personally. But regarding this, I do have some concerns. So I served on the school committee for 3 years. I've worked for school departments the last 4 years. I work in an elementary school now. This is not a financial decision. This is a programming decision. The relationship with the city, according to state law and the city charter that we all follow, our relationship with the school committee is pretty much financial and through elections. Do elections for them and anything to do with finances, budget, yeah, that's where we come into play. Any type of programming, telling them how they run their schools is not something we do. It's just not by our charter, not by state law. If you want to have an effect on the programming and determine the programming in the schools, run for the school committee. Elections every 2 years, elections have consequences. So I just feel very uncomfortable with us as a council stepping in because this isn't a financial decision. We're supportive of it. We're not saying make any changes. We're simply saying what the programming should be. And to me, that's a step too far. I do plan to email my thoughts to the school committee themselves. As Councilor Ray said, we're going to speak tomorrow about it. She's our representative to the school committee, so I'll share my thoughts there as well. I mean, to my knowledge either the council or school committee could end the SRO programming, but again, I'll share my full thoughts with the school board and Councilor Ray, so I'm not going to go in full depth here right now. Just so the public knows, I do support the SRO program. I don't support the resolution that's being proposed tomorrow night. As a staff member at an elementary school, no staff members saying, things are pretty safe, we can slack back a bit. I've never heard that concern whatsoever. Again, those are my thoughts personally, but as a city councilor, I feel very uncomfortable putting political pressure on a school committee to make a programming decision. As much as you may not like the decision that they make, elections do have consequences, and we have to trust that the school committee, with the information that they get, which we don't all have, we have to trust that they're going to do what they do. If we lose faith in that system, then maybe the residents of Lewiston can change the city charter, change state law, do what you want to do. It's really frustrating for me because I was just in the school committee in January. So there's been a lot of times where I've said, what on earth are they doing? I want to step in. It's not my role. So if you're a member of the public and you're frustrated, I get it. Just when the election comes up, there'll be big choices to make. Get your thoughts there. I'm more than willing to keep receiving the emails and communication from the public that we've had. It is very helpful to me. And if we're required to make some kind of decision on this, that does help. It just got to be a reminder that if something goes south in the Lewiston public school system, they're more an extension of DOE than they are of the city. So DOE would take over before we ever would. And I think it's important that we recognize that relationship and we make it clear to the public what powers we have. And maybe the public does want us to put that political pressure in the school system, but as an educator myself, that's just not something I can do. So I don't necessarily feel it's important for us to make a decision as a council tonight to put out a resolution, especially with this being presented literally at the end of the meeting here. Personally, again, I hope no changes are made to the SRO program, but we have to do this the right way. So I'll stop it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Jelinas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could just address Councilor Jensen and say quickly that, I definitely hear you when you use the words, a step too far, and that's not my intent at all. In fact, every constituent that has reached out to me, I've been real clear about the fact that this is a decision that's made by the school committee, but that I'm here to listen or whatever. And I just feel obligated to respond to all that. That was really my point. I get that we don't make that final decision. And I know that I'm meeting with my counterpart for Ward 7 school committee member Ryan Donovan in hopes of just having more conversation with him. And Alicia and I will have more, Councilor Ray and I will have more conversation as well. But I can just speak really briefly to this since we are just sharing a bit. I speak threefold. I speak as a parent of 6 kids who have gone through the Lewiston School Department, have had a really positive experience with SROs and DARE officers. I speak as a professional that's in and out of the public schools almost on a daily basis doing contractual work for them and having an opportunity to witness the work that's being done right in the public schools day in and day out by the SROs and the DARE officers. And I speak as a city councilor. And when I speak as a city councilor, I really speak about the fact that, we've heard from administrators, staff that work in the schools, parents sharing stories from the students. And I think that's the most important body to pay attention to. And so I am fully supporting the SRO position as well as the DARE. I mean, one of the emails that was very interesting to me was the email that Chief O'Malley put out, really explaining the programs better. It's not as old school as we think. I thought that was very helpful, educational for me to read as an older counselor. And I'll just wrap it up and say that I look at these roles as mentors, counselors, advocates, role models, all good things. And I could not be in support of a proposal to eliminate either of those positions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Pettengill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I can't say anything any better than has already been said by Councilors Clement and Jelinas. So I appreciate your sentiments and your comments. Prior to my time on the city council, this is my second term now, I served on the planning board. And while the city council doesn't have much purview over the school committee, it doesn't mean that we can't communicate. There are dozens and dozens and dozens of meetings of the city council that I attended as a planning board member that we came before to speak our mind and voice our opinion on something that was coming before the city council that the planning board had done. It doesn't mean that they had to listen to us, and many times they didn't, but we were still there to voice our opinion. This is an important matter that affects every part of our community. Again, while we don't have much input over the school committee, their actions and their decisions do affect us up here and the decisions that we have to make, from everything from economics to right down to the school budget. I myself support our SROs, and I would love to see every counselor up here that does support them to take a stand and say that they do support our SROs and our school members. I've received over 140 communications from community members in here, from teachers to students to family members to people that work inside our schools. Those are the most important people that are speaking up right now about this. And I have received ones that are not in support of this. So it's not to say that they're not out there, but I have received an overwhelmingly majority of support for this. And I do got to take a moment to say that I've received a bunch of communication from LPS students. I'm simply floored and blown away by the responses that they have. And even the ones that say that they don't support the SROs, they do say that they support changing how it's done and keeping the SROs in the schools because they do feel that it is safe. So to wrap it up, while we may not be able to tell the school committee what to do, I do think that it is very important that we as a council do take a stand and voice our opinion on this matter because it does affect us. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Ray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the City Council's representative to the school committee, I feel that oh gosh, how do I go about this? So Councilor Jensen is absolutely right. So the school committee, as an anecdote, hosted a public budget meeting last week on Wednesday night, and members of the school committee attended in support of our Chief Administrative Officer, Bobby Avery, who's going to run that Q&A. And Luke was the only member who showed up, and he was a member of the public when he showed up there. He was not there as Councilor Jensen, he was a member of the public, and he asked questions that he had as someone who was going to be voting on the budget. And that is how I see this process as well, personally. The council has mechanisms to communicate as individuals and as counselors. And it would be just absolutely false to say that the school committee has not received the same sort of communication that the council has received. The school committee is not going into this uninformed. I don't think the council is going to say anything that hasn't been said before. And I just don't think it's the position of this deliberative body to be sending this sort of statement forward when the obligations of the council to the school committee are to set the financial parameters. and to host elections in which those folks could be turned over. Mr. Mayor, you said before the mayor has limited authority, and that authority goes down to creating ad hoc committees, making proclamations, making statements, and then making appointments. And I, again, thank you for my appointment to the school committee. I thank former Mayor Bouchard for the initial appointment to the school committee, two folks who I'm not really ideologically aligned with, but who have trusted in this process. Again, the school committee itself is a deliberative body of 9 members. And I just think, you know, as a sign of respect, there need to be more conversations happening between board members, which I think are happening in some situations, but not all. And through me as the council's representative, I so appreciate the folks who have reached out before. I am always willing to listen and welcome input. And even tonight, I mean, I know what I believe, but I have promised the folks who have reached out to me either through school committee meetings or through city council meetings that I will consider everything before our vote on Monday, July 13th. And so I will not be, I guess I'm gonna have to abstain from this vote because I'm not going to commit myself one way or the another, no matter how I feel, because we haven't heard the entire story yet. Folks know that there will be public comment available on Monday night, July 13th at Connors Elementary School. And folks might be choosing to come to that because they want their comments read into the record rather than just sitting in our emails, which is highly unsatisfactory. And so, yeah, I don't know what else I can say to convince folks. This is just not the council's place, in my opinion. Even if I were not the representative, I would not be in support of this because it just is not right according to charter. I think the mayor was totally in line with making his own statement. I think councilors can make their own statements, communicate as members of the public as well. And yeah, I guess, Mr. Mayor, you'll get to vote in my stead.
Well, you brought my name up a few times. I guess I'm going to respond just a bit here. Councilor Jensen mentioned political pressure. There are ways to communicate and with the school committee in a way that would not be considered political pressure. The council can share thoughts without the tone that some might be considered threatening. So I just want to add that. Councilor Khalid.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few comments that I would like to make. First, I echo Councilor Jensen's points. I honestly feel uncomfortable making a policy decision for the school or taking a stand for this, something regarding the school committee. In the past, personally, as well as, as a city councilor, I have been told what I can say or what I cannot say regarding the school policies or anything regarding school. And I will, continue to talk to our council representative, Alicia Ray, to share my stance and my opinions. And also I will, wait for Monday. Like we have all gotten emails, and largely it's supporting, but again, I will wait Monday if I do get the chance to share my opinions as a resident with the school committee. I graduated 2014, not too long ago, I hope, hopefully. And I do have a brother who goes to Lewiston High School as a sophomore. I have a lot of cousins. I have a lot of family members and relatives. So that being said, I just feel uncomfortable and therefore I will be abstaining from this.
Thank you. Councilor Clement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't think we are weighing in and giving the school committee any type of a policy decision. The city council has skin in this game in that we control what happens with our police department by policy through the city administrator and the chief of police. We are a policy-making body. For anybody to dictate how our police can be used, I would just throw that argument back that the school committee can't tell us how to handle the police. I don't want to get into that in a tit for tat argument. However, I do think it entirely appropriate that we, if we decide as a body or a majority of the body decides to send a sentiment, this is what we're hearing. We thought you folks would like to know. You know, I think it's entirely appropriate. In fact, I think it would be remiss if we do not send that along. I take issue with the councilor's comment earlier about a slap in the face. I'm going to let that slide. So I think it's important that we come to a decision and send that decision along. It may very well assist them at a difficult time.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know with us on the council, we take ownership of the city and the city government. It's what we do. It's how we do our jobs well. I mean, this is not a financial decision. I mean, well, if it was related to that, it would be with the budget, but this is a programming decision. This is a policy decision by the school system itself. And so we can argue that it's not that, but if it's not financial and it doesn't have to do with election, it falls under a category of the school system itself. So I just can't, I completely disagree with the idea that this is any kind of financial decision. So I know some councilors do disagree. I've seen some head shaking. I really don't know what else to say besides that, but it's not a financial decision here that we're making, you know. And I just think that's extremely important.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? So I heard, go ahead, Councilor Pettengill.
Maybe I'll need Kathy's help for this. The original motion on the table was whether or not we would be comfortable sending a recommendation for our support or against the proposed motion for the school committee.
And the motion is to enter into a discussion regarding the proposal before the school committee regarding the school resource officer and to see if there is agreement for or against the proposal.
So as far as I understand it, we're not debating the merits of the program per se, but it's whether or not the council's stance on it. And it's not like any other motion or resolution that's come before us at any time that the council's ever met. We're either for something or we're against something. And I think that that's what Councilor Clement and myself, as well as the rest of the constituents of the city, are looking for is a little bit of leadership and what direction the council would like to see the city go towards.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Jelinas.
I thought the same thing. I thought that really the motion on the floor was really just to see whether or not we wanted to have some discussion about it. You know, there's no intent here to usurp any kind of power. I mean, I understand how this all works. I thought it was just really about trying to figure out if we were on the same page and how we felt about it. I didn't realize we had a vote on the floor. I mean, I felt it was like we were offering ideas. I mean, I talked about the fact that I have made a point to reach out to my counterpart, my Ward 7 school committee member, how I've made a point to reach out to Councilor Ray. I mean, I thought it was really more about just talking about this, not necessarily, and I just felt strongly about putting our voices to this, but not necessarily saying that we're trying to be who we're not. I understand our role is not, we are not school committee members. And you know, Councilor Jensen's right. If I wanted to run for school committee, I would have run for school committee. I didn't. But it doesn't mean that I'm not responsible for, you know, responding to all of the emails that came my way and at least putting a voice to this a little bit. That's all.
Thank you, Councilor LaJoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Quite a bit has been said, and I've received a number of emails as well. I think by just having this discussion this evening, and I can be corrected on this, but having this open discussion this evening and finding out where councilors stand in regards to the situation the school is going, or the school committee is going through, is going to be out in the open tomorrow. It's going to be in the news media, I'm sure. You know, the news media is looking at this. So I guess for the record, I am not for the elimination of SROs and the drug officer as well. I believe that they have a role in the school. They've been there for a number of years. They've done excellent work. And if I had the opportunity to vote, I would vote against a proposal to remove these individuals from the school. So I guess my statement now is public, and I think that would suffice. I'm not sure, but that's what my thoughts are. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Clements again.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, briefly, I had a conversation the other night. If and when this matter is finally resolved, if we still have school resource officers, an idea that came to point, there's a National Association of School Resource Officers. They have a certification program, and I would think, looking at the points that are set forth in that program, that this might be something we could get in a joint dialogue with the school committee, because we'd be looking to certify our police officers to perform a function for them. That'd be something that would be a very good thing for the city. Now, in view of what's gone around, I think I'd like to perhaps change my motion and see if we can come to some agreement. What I'd like to know is if councilors would have any objection to taking a vote either for or against the resolution, supporting either for or against, and then having either the clerk or the administrator forwarding the results of our discussion and informal or straw vote to the school committee, that they might use that in their deliberations. We recognize that it's a difficult decision they're trying to make, and we're just trying to give them the benefit of what constituent feedback we've had. I think your letter went beautifully. Maybe if we can't do it that way, we can take a straw vote in support of or against your letter that went to the school committee. One or the other would be great, I would think. I can't see how anybody would object to that. We're not trying to develop policy for the school department. We're trying to make them aware of what our constituents are telling us. They may or may not have said the same things to the school committee. And I think it's important that they have the benefit, just like we would have benefit from constituents on matters that come in the school budget. I realize that they formulate a budget. We do have the final authority over it, but it's always helpful to know where people stand on things. So with that in mind, if we could somehow come up with an agreement for a forum here, I'd like to move it along. If we can vote or have a straw vote, it doesn't need to be anything official, but I just think it's important that we send some consensus out of this body. This is too big an issue for us to sit back and just ignore it. And I thank you for your time.
Councilor Ray.
I just wanted to go ahead and since we're talking about the conversations we've had with constituents, one of the main conversations that I've had and that folks have been very appreciative to hear is, and I would hope that folks stop using this language, the proposal is not to eliminate all SROs. It is to reduce the number. There's 4 parts apparently to this proposal. Sorry, I was just trying to pull it up. Reduce the number of SROs in the schools from 4 to 3. Number 2 is to end the DARE program and the designation of one of the SROs as the DARE officer. The third item is to prohibit the permanent presence of an SRO in any elementary school. And so based on 1 and 3 together, there would be a floating SRO for all elementary schools, 1 stationed at the middle school and 1 still stationed at the high school. And then the 4th was to create a restorative justice coordinator position at Lewiston High School. If folks recall, we formerly had a grant to fund that position. That grant was not renewed. A position was created at the district level for restorative justice practices. I can't remember the name of the coordinator position, but the person who was at the high school is now at the district level, and so that leaves a gap at the high school level. So I think that's trying to address that. I think, again, I just want what the proposal is to be out there, because I think folks are using slightly inaccurate language, and we all know how that can get us in trouble. Again, if we're talking about any of these motions, I think it is still inappropriate for the council to send forward as a deliberative body a message, but again, other councilors can vote differently.
Okay, thank you. And I just think, you know, out of fairness, you read through that, reminding everybody that's the action that's going to be taken. But the author of that made it very clear publicly that his intent is to eliminate the SRO program. So I think it's important that we all understand what the school committee will be voting on, but let's not, he chose to make it public what his true intent was. And I think we can't mention that but without acknowledging that as well.
Mr.
All right,
Mayor,
so
may I ask, where was that made public?
On Facebook. From him. Okay. I've read it. Yeah, I think several
As
people.
Someone who's very much avoiding Facebook over the past week, did not know that. However, I think, again, this is the proposal, and maybe that's the ultimate goal, but I think this conversation has started. And again, I get the impression that the school committee doesn't listen and the school committee doesn't know how to read their emails. We are getting every one of these emails as well. And so council action does not feel necessary or appropriate in this moment. I'm getting extremely frustrated, if you can't tell, because again, this is not a financial matter and it does not have to do with an election.
I understand that this is a challenging subject, but again, because of comments from committee members, it has become a very challenging subject for many in our community, our constituents. I have all the faith in the world. In fact, I have said it to several councilors on the council that the school committee has a role, the city council has a role, and we can't blur those lines. I'm not convinced that the council cannot provide input to the school committee prior to a vote. In fact, I believe opposite. I think the council can provide input, but it has to be done in a way that is not overstepping the bounds. We can't instruct them how to vote, and we can't threaten a cause if they don't vote the way we would want, and none of that's happening. I think there are councilors suggesting that possibly the council could share their thoughts about our SRO program and our DARE officer program. That could be as simple as acknowledging that the program has been successful in Lewiston for well over 25 years or approximately 25 years. So it can be done in a way that we don't overstep the bounds as a council. And it can be done in a way that we're not exuding political pressure on them. And so I disagree with a couple of councilors here that we have no right to share our opinion of a program that's been in place for a number of years. So I really think it's dependent on the wording. And so that's my opinion on that. And then again, you reminded me tonight of my limited powers, so I won't be voting on this. And I would encourage no councilors to abstain. Either vote yes or no. If you don't believe that this is the appropriate way to go, you vote no. If you do, you vote yes. Although I'm not even sure I understand that whether we have a voting motion on the table or not either, to be quite honest with you. All right, Councilor Clement, you've spoken several times on this subject, so I'll just remind you of that. And
I appreciate the reminder, and nobody wants to end this any more than I. However, you brought up a point. I had a conversation with a school committee member. I will not identify that member, but that member took great pride in our discussion of indicating that the original motion had been walked back to where it sits now. That person took great personal pride in saying, I convinced that school committee member to go at this in this fashion. one at a time. We take one out now, then you can do whatever you want next year. So the idea of that Facebook posting, it's out there, and I think that's the ultimate intent. And I think it's a wrong intent, and I hope that people here, I don't know what we're looking for a motion to vote on. Somebody that is more of a wordsmith than I've come up with a couple of suggestions, but I think we could go on record individually as for or against the proposal, and then send a tally of that. Or we could go on record for and against in support of or against your letter, something to that effect. Is that something that people think would work? I see that there's some acquiescence on the part of at least two counselors now. If that's the case, I'll try to draft a motion to that effect. We can vote it up or down, and then we can move to adjourn.
All right. Again, I'm going to suggest that potentially an action could be that we support the SRO program and the work that it's done over the years, and not any deeper. At some point here, I'd like to switch to public comment. We do have a couple of public comments, and then I'd bring it back to the council. Okay. So Dale, I see Linda Scott and Janet Bodane, and I'm sure I'm not pronouncing that quite right, but let's bring in Linda Scott. Linda, if you could just state your name and the town that you reside in, not that we don't all know.
Hi, it's Linda Scott. I live in Lewiston. 6-year former member of the Lewiston School Committee and 2 years as the chair of the Lewiston School Committee. A couple of things I'd like to touch upon. First off, I think that as city councilors, you need to be very careful about a decision you make and making a statement to the school committee prior to them having the opportunity to discuss it and to make their own vote. That is their purview to discuss and decide on policy issues. Now, I understand what's happening. I'm reading all the social comments. I have not been on the school board for 3 years, and my phone has been inundated for the last 3 days with people asking me my opinion. I'm not going to give my opinion on the SRO situation. What I believe city councilors should be doing is giving what they are hearing to the school committee. The school committee is getting emails. I think that the city council can make it their point known. They can go to the school committee meeting next week and talk about what they've heard, what their constituents have said. But I find it very, very slippery slope that you might be going down if you decide to make a vote right now on your feelings of whether you support or not support this. By making a vote prior to this, you do send a message to the community that you have a decision made and that that's probably where the school committee should go. And I think that that's unfair to the elected officials of the school committee who spend a lot of time doing the work that they do for our school, for our kids. And I think you need to be very careful in making any kind of vote like that. I absolutely agree that your opinions should be heard. I absolutely agree that they should know all the emails that you're getting. And I absolutely agree that you should all be having a discussion. But I do not believe that you should be making any sort of public vote right now, especially since, and I'm going to bring this up, that you suspended the rules at the end of the meeting to discuss something that should be discussed publicly, in my opinion. And I think it's lucky that a few of us were watching to see this happening. And I find that a little bit concerning that you might be making a vote on this tonight. And I think you should make your opinions known, but I don't think that you should make any public stance or vote on where you stand with this until you give the school committee the chance to do what they need to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, if we can bring Janet in. Wrong Janet. Hi, Janet. Okay, Janet, you're unmuted. If you could go ahead, please. Everything looked all right on your end, Dale? Okay, so Janet, I don't know if you're muted on your end or not, but you appear to be unmuted on our end. Okay, any suggestions? You're muted, Dale.
I will try, oops, she's gone now.
She's back in the,
Yeah.
Janet, if you wish to speak, could you try to raise your hand again? Okay, so I'm not sure if we have a technical issue. We're going to try to bring you back in and unmute you on our end. I show her still muted, Dale.
Yep, I've clicked it twice. It should.
Okay. So Janet, you appear to be unmuted. Can you hear me? Now, if she's on a telephone, what does she have to do, Madam Clerk?
It's either, I think it's *6. It's either *6 or *9. Heather's saying *6. Thank you, Heather. So she would just press *6 on her telephone if she's on a telephone. If she is on her computer, she needs to make sure that there's a microphone built into her computer or attached to her computer somehow.
Mayor, that I would say the latter part is more the issue. It looks like she does not have the telephone symbol. It looks like it's a video. So this is through computer audio. So it's something related to the computer that I would suggest.
All right. All right. So Janet, one more time. Can you hear me? All right. So I apologize. For some reason, we're not hearing any voice from you. All right. So I'll bring it back to the council. Madam Clerk, can you just read that motion again? So you have to.
So the motion is to enter into discussion regarding the proposal before the school committee regarding the school resource officer and to see if there is agreement for or against the proposal.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Clement?
I would withdraw that motion in favor of what you expressed just before we went to the public. If you could restate that motion.
I suggested that we may be able to do a motion that basically shows support for our SRO program and DARE program without exerting any type of pressure on the committee. That's just as an alternative.
Then I withdraw the main motion that's before the body now and instead insert a motion that the council, I guess, vote or whatever word is appropriate there, a show of support for the school resource officer and DARE programs in the city of Lewiston. I don't see how that puts any pressure. We're supporting that program.
Okay.
Is that the gist of what you're saying?
Yeah, again, I'm just trying to throw alternatives out there for the council to consider because we seem like we're in a place that there's no clear motion on the table. So does Councilor Clement have a second?
Second.
Okay. We've had a lot of discussion on this. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Ray.
Mr. Mayor, I know that you said you don't think anyone should abstain. However, as a voting member of the school committee with all the rights and responsibilities that come with that, I would find it inappropriate for my position to enter a vote right now without having the benefit of the next 6 days of public comment that comes in via email and also the in-person public comment that will occur on Monday. So I will be abstaining from this vote.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councilor Pettingill?
Maybe just a, I lost it, but Councilor Ray sits on the school committee as a member of the city council, correct? So she should be well within her purview to vote on this because she sits on the school committee as a member of the city council?
Well, she's a representative of the city council on the school committee.
So she represents our views on the school committee, correct?
I'm not sure. No, I believe she's sworn in as a school committee member, so she has the authority to vote her will. But like she's shown us in the past, she's always attempting to get input from the councilors before a vote, I guess.
So that would beg to reason that she's a school committee member on the city council.
She's the city council school board representative. Yes,
On the city council though.
Madam Clerk, do you have anything to add?
I think I would just concur with what you said, Mr. Mayor. The charter, I think, is pretty limited regarding its definition of it. And so my understanding is that, as exactly what you said, Councilor Ray is the representative from the city council to the school board. She was elected by the council. She was nominated by the mayor, elected by the council, and sworn in at the inauguration as a member of the school committee.
Thank you. Councilor Pettengill, anything further?
Just looking for a little bit of clarification on the role. It seems incredibly muddled, but thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilor Khalid?
Thank you, Mayor. So Ward 1 constituents have voted for me to be on the city council. I did not run for school committee. Therefore, I will be voting no.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Clement?
Just briefly, Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure, Councilor Ray, and I'm certainly not trying to force her into anything, but if she's claiming a conflict of interest, I believe there is a method whereby that decision is made by the council as to whether or not there is a conflict. If that's the case, if anyone wants to proceed that way, and I'm certainly not suggesting that, but if a conflict of interest is claimed, I believe under either our charter or our ordinances, I'm not sure which without looking, there is a method where the council decides whether or not that conflict exists, and that decision is final.
I think one, I guess Councilor Ray made it very clear that she has a pending vote on this as a school committee. She wants to remain open-minded until that point. I guess at this point as mayor, I would support that. In reference to the conflict, I think that kind of goes both ways. A councilor can say they have a conflict, and a council could vote to support that, or to make a statement that they believe a councilor has a conflict when they choose they want to vote. So I think it's actually used in the opposite direction, but that's, I don't think we're there. I think Councilor Ray has a valid reason to abstain at this point.
I don't have a problem with her abstaining, but if she was going to claim that, I was going to say that is the way it could be decided. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Ray, a lot of councilors have brought up your name. Anything you'd like to add?
So as far as I know, and Mr. Meyer, you know how much I've read this charter, I do not know of any provision for a vote on assessing someone's conflict of interest, nor do I know of anything in the ordinances. I believe there may have been something in the state legislature discussing this at one point, but I do not know the result of that or that we have been briefed on the matter. And so again, continuing, I cannot in good conscience live up to my word to my constituents that I am keeping an open mind and accepting all input if I take a vote tonight, 6 days before the school committee takes its vote.
Okay, thank you. Councilor LaJoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really don't want to see Councilor Ray put in a position as such. It's difficult enough to try to represent a council and also have a vote on the city committee as well. She doesn't need that type of pressure, and I don't think we have to start discussing that in that direction. However, I would ask this question: if we as a body and not necessarily Councilor Ray, but we as a body this evening basically indicated in our discussion that we're concerned with the action that may be taken at the next meeting in regard to the SROs and the DARE program. Couldn't Councilor Ray at the meeting state that I just want to let everyone know that in regards to the city council, this is the position that they have or they've expressed without taking a vote or anything like that. And that brings the message to the school committee that we've shown interest, we've responded to our constituents, we responded to the many emails that we received. And maybe that would be more appropriate. I know that we've done that in the legislature and the Criminal Justice Committee, where we brought that information forward. And just as an example, let's say I'm going to use one association. Let's say the Sheriff's Department comes in and says the Maine Sheriff's Association has a concern with regards to the proposal as presented. And I just wanted to bring that forward for the committee to undertake or understand. And so I guess I'm rattling on here, but I'm trying to find a way that we're not trying to put an individual within our realm, the city council, in a position that is extremely, extremely difficult to move forward. So again, what's the best way to bring that over? As I said before, everything that we've discussed this evening is going to be on the news tomorrow morning or in the newspaper or what have you. And therefore, most of it's going to be out. But I guess that's where I'm at. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's actually a pretty good alternative to this and still get the message across. Councilor Ray, do you have any thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I, again, would point to my record of 30 months of serving both deliberative bodies and the excessive reporting that I do of each position, much to the mayor's chagrin of how long I extend these meetings, or to the chair of the school committee's chagrin of how long I extend their meetings. I provide as much information as possible. And then I also continuously encourage folks to filter information through me or through their correlated ward representative. Again, I would encourage that in this situation and to not take a vote.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Jelinas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to make it brief and say I have complete trust in Councilor Ray and her. I respect the experience that she brings, you know, as a school board representative, and as a counselor and a school board representative. And for me, like when we started this whole discussion, it really was about just having a discussion as a council from my point of view. And I was, you know, I also am really thinking about what Linda Scott shared in her public comments just a little while ago, and she makes really good sense. And I feel like we've stated our points. They are public. You know, Councilor Joy brings up a good point. They're going to be published. People are going to know how we feel. I fully intend to be there on Monday, Councilor Ray, to speak as a counselor representing, you know, Ward 7 and everything that I've gotten and sharing all that. I continue to say the same thing. I'm going to meet with my school board counterpart. I'm going to meet with people like you and continue to do that work in terms of making sure that my voice is heard and how I feel on this. I mean, even if we as a council decided to take a vote, like honestly, we're making a vote right now. How do we feel tonight? 6 days prior to what's going to actually come down, number one. Number two, does it really, I mean, I think we've all had an opportunity to say how we feel. Oh, well, yes, I think we all have. And I guess I'm with Councilor Joy on this one. I feel like I'm glad that Councilor Clement brought it up. I'm glad that we had a chance to go into this discussion. I think it was an important discussion to have. But listen, there's like 22 attendees on this call right now. And I don't know how many people are going to be at the school board meeting on Monday, but there's going to be more opportunity for us to speak our piece and to share our opinions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Councilor Clement?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, just so there's no indication that I am trying to put any pressure on Councilor Ray, I have the utmost confidence. I had a very good discussion with her last night. She made several good points. She brought up some things that I was unaware of. I think we were able to clear the air on a couple of different things other than this issue last night. I have the utmost faith and confidence in her, and I concur wholeheartedly with now what Councilor Jelinas and Councilor LaJoy have brought up. I hate to see her put in that position. That was not my intent. My intent was, it sounded like we had a conflict here and there was a way to resolve it. That appears not to be the question. I don't want to put her in that position. I think she's perfectly right to abstain from any vote if she wants to. And let's move this thing along. If we're going to take a vote, let's move the question. If not, if somebody wants to register a public comment, now would be the time to do so, I guess.
I think everybody has registered their opinion on this, and I think 4 are pretty clear that they just would rather Councilor Ray share the sentiment of the council, and she's given a thumbs up. Would that suffice for you, Councilor Clement?
Well, I guess it sounds like there are 4. I mean, I'm not going to move something that is going to get defeated on this issue, so I will withdraw the main motion, and I will state publicly for the media or whoever is listening that I am absolutely against doing away with any SRO position or the DARE program in the Lewiston Public Schools. I say that as a taxpayer, a resident of Ward 6, and also the elected representative of my constituents in Ward 6. I'm voicing their opinion to me. Thank you all very much.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from councilors? With that,
Move to adjourn.
motion to adjourn by Councilor Clement. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Oh, call the roll, I'm sorry.
Counselor from Ward 1? Oh, I'm sorry, Ward 6. Sorry. Counselor from Ward 6?
Absolutely.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Yeah.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yep.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Thank you, councilors, and thank you, staff.
Good night, all.
Good night.